Hi everyone. So today we're going to talk about water brushes. And so I have recently gotten back into water brushes. A while ago someone gave me one and it was a complete disaster. It must have been a really cheap one or a really ill-constructed one because I could not get the thing to work and I just threw it into the trash. And then since I've been traveling a little bit more and going away and trying to really downsize my travel kit, I kind of really started researching them again, and I bought 4 different brands to try. Now, I was originally recommended to buy this Pentel Gouache, which I've heard was really great. And so I bought one of these, and I bought one with kind of a nice size tip. I would say it's probably around the size of maybe like a number 6 watercolor brush. And then they all have these little reservoirs for the water, and they come apart this way. Now, people have said, oh, fill it up with an eyedropper. I am not an eyedropper lady, but I found out that I could just do this and in a few pumps get the whole thing filled. And that's how I like to roll. I roll quick. So this is how I would do it. I've also filled them up in the sink, and that works great. Okay, so that's what I've been doing. Now, when you paint with them, the one thing I've learned is that you really have to definitely have to reactivate your paints very well, because the whole thing that this brush does, is it eliminates the need for a bucket of water. And we paint with the puddle we create when we paint with watercolors. So we do not paint by scraping out what's inside the pan, or we don't paint with the stuff that comes out of the tube. We create with the puddle that we make. So we really need to have that activated watercolor. So we dip in with these, we start to paint, and then we can start to create flow by just squeezing a little bit with our brush, and the little bit of water comes out. And it's kind of a learning curve in the beginning, but I've kind of decided I kind of really like them, and it's kind of fun to learn how to work with them. And you can do all the same kinds of things, like add a little bit of wet into wet. You can definitely, which I was surprised because of all the water involved, you can get some dry brush techniques with them, and they're really fun to use. I've been having a lot of fun playing with them. I do really like this Gouache brush, which, now when you want to clean it, all you do is you run the water through the brush and you wipe it on a paper towel, and it comes clean, and then you just dip into your next color, which is what I love. You just go right into your next color, and it's nice and clean and vibrant. Again, just like run that water through, right, really quickly, and it's clean. So you don't use a lot of water with it. And again, the water, your colors come out really clean and pure and vibrant. Super fun to use. I'm really having a great time with them. I think the thing that I'm finding, though, is, like, for me, I would definitely need just to bring a smaller spray bottle with me and a bottle of drinking water, and I'd be fine, for my colors. But I've been playing with them quite a bit, and I think I'm going to really enjoy using them because they're very lightweight. You could definitely travel with them empty, and then just go from there. If you had, a few of them just filled, I think you'd be great for a day out painting. So I discovered that this Gouache brush is very similar to the set of Arteza brushes that I bought. So the Arteza brush and the Gouache brush are almost identical in design. And I think that this is probably a knockoff of this, because Pentel is a little bit of a higher end product. So I'm sure that they did a little bit of a knockoff. These are really nice. I took this entire set to my painting class, and this is a full set of different sizes. So that has the same size as that. It has one that's a little bit fatter. Oh, I think that one got put away with pink paint on it. Oh. So anyway, we're gonna run that through, clean it off a little bit. But anyway, this one is a little bigger, and then there was 2 fine ones. This whole set was very reasonably priced. And this one is stained, but it's absolutely clean. So just like all synthetic brushes, they will pick up a little bit of pigment and just stay a little discolored looking. Okay, so now those 2 brands, Pentel and Arteza, love. Then I bought, what is this one? I bought the Derwent, which I also love, and it had like a very big reservoir, super easy to fill, nice big hole on the reservoir. Let's see what size I bought. I bought all different sizes to experiment, so see which ones I like best. This was a fine tip, but it's a beautiful brush. Now, like I said, they're all, you can get some really beautiful fine lines with it, and they all work the same way. You just push a little bit of water through, grab your next color, and you're just ready to paint. And even when we're grabbing complementary colors, you can see like how pure those colors come out after you just run a little bit of water through and clean that brush off. Super fun. Okay, lots of fun. I just really like them. Now, the only one I wasn't 100% pleased with was this one, which is the Kuretake. And the only reason I did not like it was not, and I love the brush, I love how it works. But I do not like how it fills. It has a very small hole where you put the water in. So it was almost impossible to fill it. It has the tiniest little hole, and I don't know how you're supposed to get the water in. So I ended up submerging it completely in water, squishing all the air out, and then releasing it and letting it fill that way. That's how I filled this. It was really a problem. So, but other than that, I think, you know, I wouldn't throw it away. I'll probably use it, but it wouldn't be easy to refill with like your water bottle or something if you were out, you know, painting on site. So maybe this is when you fill back at the hotel room or in your Airbnb, and then when it's done, it's, you know, when it's empty, it's empty. Now, that being said, I was really surprised when I had a 2-hour painting class and we were painting with these water brushes, and they lasted for the whole amount of time we were painting. We didn't really have to refill them. And so I used the same one throughout the entire class, and this little reservoir lasted for the entire time I was painting, which I was very surprised. So I'm very pleased with them. I really like them. So let's hop inside. I'm just going to show you a few of the things I like using them for. So let's get started. So now I want to show how it activates my light wash and Stabilo pencils. So here you'll see me, I'm just doing a small sketch, just a little quick sketch of a bird, and I'm using the Derwent light wash pencils. Now I love these pencils. I use them all the time for under drawings, under a watercolor painting. Sometimes I use them under my canvas paintings. They're a very light wash. So, you know, they'll either just lightly activate with water, or they will completely disappear under a heavier painting like an acrylic painting. And here I'm using, I think, the Pentel. No, I'm using the Karataki here, and I'm just lightly activating it, and you get a very light watercolor effect with this particular pencil. It's a very nice pencil. You can use these in your sketchbook, and you'll get just kind of a interesting light wash effect, or you can use it under a painting, and they leave a really nice effect. But these are perfect for activating color, like watercolor pencils and things like that too. So underneath that, I'm doing a very just a simple little flower drawing with a Stabilo pencil. Now the Stabilo graphite pencils are much darker, so those are going to activate in a different kind of way, and you'll see this one is going to be the Pentel Gouache, and this is much darker. You're going to get a darker wash. You can actually push that wash around and get some painterly effects with what comes off the Stabilo pencil. Stabilo's a little bit more of a standalone medium, because if you're going to use this under a watercolor, it is going to mix with your paint, and because it's so dark and so black, it will create shades. It's almost like using black paint. So you have to be a little careful with it, where you can take that light wash Derwent and it's not going to really affect the colors you're using. Just something to keep in mind. I will link in the description box to all the materials I used in this video. So then I grabbed some Derwent watercolor pencils, and I colored in some of those areas on those little flowers that we did with the Stabilo. And that's just a regular watercolor pencil that I'm using in this next little snippet here. And then we're going to activate those colors as well. And yeah, just so you could see the difference. And it actually didn't move the Stabilo all that much, so you can really see how those activate. Now those don't move around too much, and those could absolutely be intermingled with watercolor. And color pencil and watercolor go hand in hand, and they look really nicely together. So I very often will incorporate color pencil or watercolor pencil into my watercolors to get additional mark making, and I really like the way that looks. So then what I'm going to do next is I want to talk about Caran d'Ache Neo Color 2, which is the water-soluble version. Now, a lot of times I talk about Neo Color 1, which are the ones that are not water-soluble. So what I did here was I just made myself a little bit of a pattern in stripe. And then I'm going to go back in with this the watercolor brushes, and I'm going to activate them just so we can see what that looks like. And I do really love these. These are really like paint as far as I'm concerned. And they also go hand in hand with watercolor, and you can use them to add mark making. You can activate them or not, but they really are almost like paint when you add the water to them. So they do move quite a bit, but here, you know, once you could see me, you know, cleaning the brush off in between, and it really does wash all the paint right out of the brush. It's pretty amazing, and then you just move on to the next color, and it's a great thing. I just really am enjoying them so much, and they're just so much fun to use. So in the next little clip, I am doing like a little watercolor over a black micron pen. So this pen will not move at all because it's, you know, a black permanent marker, a fine line permanent marker. And, you know, black ink and watercolor, it's just a no-brainer. It always looks great together. So I just did a little kind of a simple, kind of a whimsical flower with, you know, a little bee floating in the background. And it's kind of fun because you can just pop in and out and clean your brush off in between and do your colors, and it went together really quickly with this little brush. I don't know that it would replace all my brushes because I do love my traditional brushes, but I mean, I can see why some people only use these, because if it was the only thing you ever got used to, you might say, why do I need anything else? But, you know, I've been painting with regular brushes for so many years that I don't know that I would, you know, just change strictly over to these. But I could definitely see myself taking them with me and painting with these on vacations and holidays and while I'm traveling, because they really get the job done. And it's a little different than what I normally do, but I think I could, you know, learn to really use them effectively, even though they are a little bit different than what I'm used to. There are definite things that I have to get used to still, even though I've been using them quite a bit, to try to learn about how to use them. Like I always have water on my table. And so I definitely want to dip into the water. And that's just like habitual. So I'm trying to get over little things like that and be more effective about how I use them. So now we're going to paint a full watercolor using the water brush, and I'm going to share some of my shells, which I love to use in the summer because we're not too far from the beach, and I just love using them. So I live in Connecticut, so we're on Long Island Sound, which isn't the ocean, but we're really close to the ocean. We're not too far away. We could get there in less than an hour, but like I'm so close to the beach. I mean, I'm probably just like 15 minutes away. But then this is another shell like this that's just been worn away by the ocean, which I think these are so cool. And then we don't live too far from oyster beds, and I just really have always loved oyster shells. I just really think they're really cool. They're very organic looking, and I just really love to draw and paint them. So we have all kinds of shells. So in the summer, I love drawing and painting shells. So I think maybe I'll do an oyster shell. And so one of my tips, this is a red watercolor pencil. So it doesn't matter that it's watercolor, because as you saw before, the watercolor, this is a Derwent and it's an older one. Now these are not super runny. So they don't make a big mess. It's not like using Stabilo. Stabilo is pretty dark wash. So I like to just do like a contour drawing of these guys. And then what I'll do is I'm going to do a painting of this with the, obviously with the water brushes. And one of my tips is, like, if you don't want your graphite to show, you can use a red color pencil or a red watercolor pencil, and it won't show when you're done painting. I sometimes don't mind my graphite showing because I love to see mark making in a painting. And sometimes I'll do it, and I'll do intentional mark making with either the Stabilo pencil or the Caran d'Ache Neo Pastels or something like that, because I really like that mark making. But this is a way that if you really don't like those graphite lines, you could take the graphite lines out by just doing red colored pencil and it won't show. It's just a little way, it's just a watercolorist's trick to not have to see that. I just love these. They're just so cool. This one has a barnacle. I love it when they have, like, the shells have barnacles. I think it's really cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose one of these, and I don't know if we've used I don't think we used the Derwent one yet. Maybe we did, but I don't think we did. I know I showed it, but I don't think we did. All right, so this one has kind of a finer tip, so maybe I'll do some of the detail painting with it. I'm going to squish some water out so it gets wet. There it is. Okay. And so I like to keep my watercolors really wet, so I'm going to give them another squish. And then, so when I'm painting, I'm going to be using not just one color on my line work. I probably will go in and use a variety of blues and some other oceany colors while I'm painting. If you use a bunch of related colors or a bunch of analogous colors, like going in and out of the different hues of blue, it just adds a little bit of interest to the line work. So how I'm going to handle this particular drawing, and you can see, like, you can't really even, once I start painting, you're not even going to be able to see the red underdrawing anymore, because that paint is pretty, this is the Schminky, so it's a pretty high quality, really pigment dense paint that I'm using. And so, but it gives it a little bit more substance or interest when you're using multiple colors of the same hue. So I'm using analogous colors, blue, blue-green, a little bit of teal, but they're all related colors, so it's very harmonious looking. I'm using, into the greens, and here I'm getting some really nice dry brush effects with this brush too, which to me was a kind of a surprise that you could even get that kind of thing. And then what I did was I did some, just a little bit of the purple for the background, and I used a bunch of different, like I used some red violet, I used some blue violet, I added some more blue into the blue violets, and what's really kind of fun to do and interesting to do with this brush is that, once you start trying to spread that out, you could add more water right from the brush, which is kind of a fun technique to do. And once you get the feel for this brush and how it works and how the water flows, you'll get a feel for how much pigment to pull up, and as you're loading it onto the paper, you can push more water out, and it will help it flow and move it around the paper. And it's just it's kind of fun to play with. So if it's something you've at all been interested in, I would definitely recommend getting one or two or more, or trying one of the little sets that they have. I can't recommend them enough. I think I really like the Pentel Gouache, and I really did like the Arteza. They were almost exactly the same. So I hope you like this video. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, because it does help the channel grow. I do appreciate it so much, and thank you for being here. And please come again soon.